His coming. During this time of year, it is many that are thinking, and various things are done and said about Jesus. Now, it's unfortunate that this is not the case year-round for many. But many are thinking this month about Jesus, and even more than that, about Jesus' coming, His birth, His incarnation, to use the more theological terminology. Let's take some time this morning as an appropriate timing to think about His coming. If you've got a copy of God's Word or access electronically, let's open up now to Luke, the 2nd chapter. Luke chapter 2. As we look at the opening paragraph of the 2nd chapter of Luke's gospel account, we find a very straightforward record of Jesus' birth, of Jesus' coming. I mean, we might go back to His conception, but this is His birth account. And in that way, at least, it is a record of the coming of Jesus. There is no major splash on the scene of history. This does not occur in some major city or key location in the known world at the time by any means. And if not for Luke's gospel account here and a couple of other places, for instance in Matthew, this would be rather unknown to human minds. Let's read it together. Luke chapter 2, 1 through 7. In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration. In verse 3, it says that all went to be registered, each to his own town. Joseph, verse 4, also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem. Then Luke observes that this was because he was of the house and lineage of David. Verse 5, he goes to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. And while they were there, the time came for her to give birth. And she gave birth to her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn. That's Luke chapter 2, 1 through 7. Let's turn our attention now to the next paragraph. Here's the birth account, but let's look at the next few verses in Luke chapter 2. There are a number of ways to approach this section of Scripture. For us today, let's look at it from the standpoint of our reactions or how we respond to His birth, His coming, the coming of Jesus. We'll do that by looking at how some of the individuals here respond, or at least how they are told to respond to His coming. And then consider how that works for us even today. Let's look at Luke chapter 2, verses 8 through 10. We're going to call it 10a this morning in a sense. The first possible response to Jesus, even just to the announcement and the glory that comes with the announcement of His coming, is fear. Fear? Fear. There are a lot of things to be afraid of, a lot of reasons for us to fear in our world, and there might be some reason to be afraid of His coming. Look at it. Luke chapter 2, verses 8 through 10, we read of great fear. In the same region, Luke writes, there were shepherds out in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were filled with great fear. If you wanted to describe just the absolute worst fear The kind of fear that has physical manifestations, where you shake and tremble, where things like that occur from the physiological standpoint. You'd write it like this: they were filled up to the brim, and it's like they're overflowing their body, all of the endorphins and everything, with immense, intense fear. And then you read the next part of Luke chapter 2. And the angel said to them, "Fear not. Fear not." Or, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. In a setting when they were shocked and afraid, he says, don't be afraid. Let's back up for just a moment and look at a couple of other examples of this phenomenon in Luke's writing already. We're less than a chapter in, or less than a chapter and a half in. Go back to chapter 1. Look at verse 13. Here we find another angel, or at least an angel, speaking to Zechariah as he's receiving the message about a different son being born, about the one we know as John, the immerser. The angel says this to Zechariah in Luke 1:13. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer has been heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John." And then it might be a page or so over, Luke chapter 1, verse 30. Now we read of Mary receiving the message about Jesus. She's about to conceive, and then eventually will, as we already looked in Luke chapter 2, give birth to a son. Luke chapter 1, verse 30, the angel says to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God." There's a pattern that when an angel comes to deliver a message, there's a pattern of fear. And in the first two cases, in my mind at least, it's less dramatic. Now, for Mary and for Zechariah, the news they're receiving, it has some drama, it has some power to it. Zechariah and Elizabeth are past the age of bearing children. They haven't had any children. Mary is a virgin. But here are shepherds in a field. And the light of God's glory, the kind of glorious light that fell on the tabernacle in the wilderness, shines around them. No wonder they were afraid. But the message is, don't be afraid. Let's look now at Hebrews chapter 2. Hebrews 2, verses 14 and 15. Jesus comes, and although for those that are unwilling to turn to Him, for the ones that we might label His enemies and those that remain such, there might be good reason to respond with fear. But He didn't come for that reason. He came to defeat the enemy, death, to defeat sin and Satan. Thus we find the Hebrew writer writing this about Him. Hebrews 2, verse 14. "Since, therefore, the children, that is us, share in flesh and blood, He Himself likewise partook of the same things. He entered into this world." Luke 2, He's born in Bethlehem. He's flesh. He's human. And the writer here says He did that through death. Keep in mind that His coming wasn't just that He was born, but His birth even looked forward to another point in time when He dies. But He doesn't stay dead. Through death, says He might destroy the one who had the power, or has the power of death, that is the devil. And verse 15, deliver all who through fear of death were subject to lifelong slavery. Can you think of a greater fear than this one? Sure, the shepherds are afraid of the angel band and the light and all of that. But can you think of anyone, whether you're a shepherd in the first century or whoever you are in the 21st century, can you think of a worse human fear? Something that we fight against and we strive to somehow withstand than the fear of death. But his coming in Bethlehem means I don't have to be afraid of anything, not even death itself or Satan himself. Fear? Maybe, but that's not why he came, his coming. Let's keep reading. We're back in Luke chapter 2. As we keep reading, part of the reason that supports this message or this command of do not be afraid or fear not is joy. Let's look at the rest of Luke chapter 2, verse 10. And we find not great fear now, but great joy. Beginning, the angel said, verse 10, Luke 2, verse 10, fear not, for, or because, here's why, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. For, another because, he's building, the angel here is rather powerful in argumentation. For, unto you is born this day in the city of David, not fear, but joy. Why? Because his coming is the coming, look at it, of a Savior who is Christ, of a Messiah, not just a, but the Messiah, who is the Christ, the Lord. Now, what did we read earlier in verse 9? The angel of who? The Lord. The glory of the Lord shone around them. Now the angel says, don't be afraid, but rejoice. Just like you had great fear, have the same level and quality of joy, because the Lord, that's the one who's been born. And then verse 11, or verse 12, and this will be a sign for you. You will find a baby. So the Son of David, a Savior, the Messiah, the Lord himself, and the sign of that is a baby. He's a baby? Wrapped in swaddling clothes, same thing we read in verse 7, and lying in a manger. And the angel says, when I hear that message, this good news, this gospel of great joy, that's how I should respond. With joy. Not fear. With joy. A joy that is offered here to all people. We're in Luke chapter 2. Let's back up to Matthew chapter 2. Consider another example here, not of fear now, but of joy. Matthew chapter 2, verse 10, and the surrounding verses, we're reading about the wise men who have come from the east to see this one. They have some interaction with Herod in this context. It has its own story. But simply observe with me their emotional state. Matthew 2, verse 10. When they saw the star that marked the location, as they realized even before they get there, as they just realize we're getting close. What does it say? What does Matthew write? when they saw the star, they rejoiced with great joy. There's those two words again. And then, of course, I overlooked the other word that just adds to this multiplied intensity. They rejoiced with exceeding great joy. Now, we said earlier, if you wanted to describe the height of fear, you'd say they were filled with great fear. Well, you've already had great joy to balance that in Luke 2, but now you have other individuals responding with a joy that is beyond anything. Overflowing falls short. It's just so high and so explosive, the joy. But that was about 2,000 years ago. And it's been in this book for about that long. What about us? For that, look at 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 8 and 9. 1 Peter 1, 8 and 9. We've been reading about people who got to see Jesus. Here, got to see Jesus at his birth, or not right afterwards. I can't do that. And no one will ever be able to see that again. But then Peter writes this: though you have not seen him, you love him. We could add that to appropriate responses to Jesus, although it is not one of our actual ones today. And then he says, though you do not see him, he keeps going, you believe in him, and, notice what faith is coupled with here, and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory. Verse 9, obtaining the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your souls. It is fundamental to respond in faith. And faith in love, those we know, we get that. Those go together. But let's not leave out what Peter writes through the Holy Spirit as inexpressible joy. That it is, that you can't really put words to it. It's how great it is. And it's meant to be an emotional thing, right? Not just something you say. It's something you're meant to respond with a feeling, with joy and excitement. That this one, the one who came to deliver me or save me, the Savior, the one who came, yes, to be the king, but the king, the kind of king who has the kind of kindness, who dies for his disloyal subjects. And because he's the kind of king who's the Lord, which means he can't stay in a tomb, but breaks the chains of death and Satan's worst, the fear of death. So that I, in the face of turmoil, in the face of death, and all that that includes, I can be with what Paul said. Philippians 4:4. I think many of us know that one by heart for a reason. And Paul doesn't say sometimes, most of the time, if everything is going well for you. No. And the key word there on the handout is that word, always. Rejoice in the Lord, not in anything else here. Rejoice in the Lord who in Luke 2 is wrapped in swaddling clothes, always. And just so we don't miss the point, he says, again, I say. He says it again. Rejoice in Jesus. Rejoice this morning that the God who formed us allowed himself to be formed in Mary's womb and born to lie in a manger. Joy. Joy. Because of his coming. But we've got one more for this morning. Fear? No. Joy? Yes. And then peace. Don't those sound good together? Joy and peace. Two more verses for our paragraph. Luke chapter 2, 13 and 14. After the angels say, don't be afraid, great joy, then they, as if they can't help themselves, explode with joyous song. But note with me one note of that song. Luke 2, 13 and 14, suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host praising God and saying, glory to God in the highest, shout it, and on earth peace among those with whom he is pleased, or with those on whom his favor, his grace rests. A message of peace. Here is the one who's come to bring peace. The Bible talks about peace between God and man. To bring a peace within man, within his heart. For that, if we wanted, we could go back to Philippians 4 and read the next few verses. The Bible also talks about peace with each other. A peace that is not always possible on the other side of things. And so we read verses like, as much as it depends on you, live peaceably or be at peace with all. And all of that, peace with God, peace in here, and peace here, goes back to the Prince of Peace and his coming in Bethlehem. Now, and there's a bit of a translation issue here, but as I see it, there's every reason to give it a fitting translation as this. That this peace, although it is available for all, it is a peace that is for those who please God, who please Jesus. I have down Hebrews chapter 11, 6. It is but one of many verses we could put here that describe different things that God says. You want to be pleasing to me? You want this peace? Here it is, faith that makes it, without it, it's impossible to please God. For he that would come to him must believe that he is, that he's a rewarder, and one of those rewards is peace. But he rewards those who eagerly or diligently seek him. Like the wise men that come seeking this one. Peace to them. But look back to chapter 2 of Luke. For me, it is across the page to Luke 2, 34 and 35. How another person responds to Jesus coming. It's a man named Simeon. A man who has been waiting for this his whole life. And he says in a couple of verses earlier that now he can die at peace because he's seen this one. But here's what he tells Mary. He blessed them and said to Mary his mother, this is Luke 2:34, behold, this child is appointed for the fall and rising of many in Israel, and for a sign that is opposed, and a sword that will pierce through your own soul also, so that thoughts from many hearts may be revealed. When I read about peace in Luke 2:14, I must also temper that as if I'm placing that peace on a scale, and I need to keep other thoughts in mind, otherwise the peace becomes isolated and extreme. Because Jesus' coming is rise and fall, depending on exactly how I do respond to Jesus. Whether I respond with faith, and we know from other scriptures of faith that is faithful, responsive, and obedience. Read the rest of Hebrews chapter 11. Or love, or even here, joy. When I respond that way, there is peace. But if I choose to respond otherwise, if I reject Jesus and turn away from His grace and His pleas for my repentance and my coming to Him, then there might not be peace. Might be fall and a sign that opposes me. We could then think of it as His peace. Not just any peace. Not peace that the world might offer or try to offer. Not peace that the world might think is peace. But His peace. A peace that is not the absence of danger or difficulty, but peace that is the presence of Jesus. That's what it means when we say His coming. He came to bring peace, but that peace is His peace. His coming. We live in a world of many fears. Fear? Perhaps. But it doesn't have to be. Instead, there is the opportunity, even for us this morning, of joy and peace. To respond with joy. To respond, in a sense, with peace. To have peace. To seek the peace of His coming. When I read Luke chapter 2, I read about a God, excuse me, He was so powerful. He shapes the Roman Empire. Where did we begin? Luke chapter 2, verse 1. That Caesar himself is under the hand of God. So that His Son, the Messiah, is born not in Nazareth, but in the city of David. The same God that shapes the Roman Empire is the same God that therefore intentionally is born. Not in the end, but is born and laid in a manger. And the message is announced to shepherds. Shepherds who might have been guarding the lambs for sacrifice in the temple. So this morning, His joy and His peace, it is not based in worldly status or standards. In fact, more often than not, it is those who have none of that or very little who are blessed by His coming in joy and peace. If you this morning are in need of that joy and that peace, instead of fear, whether it is to become a Christian, to be immersed in Jesus, or to be what Jesus wants you to be as a Christian, come now as we stand together and sing.